The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, friends, and good evening here from still another broadcasting place. That's actually a fern in back of me and not my latest hairdo. I'm glad to be back, and I'll work my way gradually back. It's been maybe a couple of weeks now, almost, or at least a week that I haven't done some webinars and just kind of building myself up for things to come. You know, when you do a conference where I would love to see a lot of you, you know, it takes quite an effort when you're there. Tui and I arrive 2 weeks ahead of time, and we'll go into isolation mode and try to get ready for this very demanding conference, you know. One of my friends said, you know, he was talking about another conference that he really he appreciated very much. And then he talked about our conference, and he said, the scope of it, I mean, the scope. And it's true, we cover a very broad range of subjects and modes of presentation. Some things that are really, really occultly serious, and some things are a lot of fun. So we work that way, you know, and the scope is big. And by the time we're finished, I guess, with the pre-conference and the main conference, 12 full days have elapsed, and then board meetings and things of that nature. So, you know, when you travel for 24 or 27 hours, whatever it is for me, to get down to the Phoenix area, you got to be in pretty good shape. So I'm building up to that and feeling better all the time, you know. So let's see. However, my glasses are somewhere in the house. That's all I can say. So I'll get a little closer and just welcome you happily, Annette and Ario and Barbara and Britta, Carl and Catherine, Frederick, Heike, Ishtar, Jan, Joan and Karen, and Leslie, Margot, Mariut, two Marthas, Gallahue and Mickelson, welcome. Nathalie, oh, what does it look like? Yeah, Nathalie, right, okay. And Nicole and Nienka and Stacia and Suzanne and Tiu and Vera and Winnie and Yvonne, Zenaidi and Veronica. Really happy to see you here, and we're backed up over here on the staff side by looks like our full team of BL, Michael, Joe, and Tuya's over there on that side. So I would say we're in pretty good shape to go through. I won't be. I guess this would be the night when I usually do a treatise on cosmic fire, but I think I'll re-enter slowly, you know, as that invariably, you know, goes a long time. And you know, re-enter with that, doing all that next week as much as may be possible. Okay, well, here's our echoic lotus, and that's what we intend to become. This is a kind of a non-scintillating picture of an egoic lotus right before the climax of the fourth initiation. I'm sure that with people like Dwayne Carpenter in the world and Francis Donald, all of those things will be taking on wonderful geometrical movement before long, and we'll be able to approximate what the Tibetan has told us of the wonder of the display of the fully developed man on the higher mental plane before he's liberated into the third phase of his development, the monadic phase of his development. Someone asked me the other day, it looks like you're just going from the egoic lotus straight to the monad, and I wanted to clarify that the spiritual triad is the what can I call it? It is yeah, it is the mind nature, emotional nature, and mental nature of the monad. So let's just say that we never reach the monad with full directness until a lot of triadal work has been done. There is a direct line here between the monadic demonstration and its presence in the egoic lotus. And that is, you know, the line direct. But the triad has to be rather prepared before that line direct can be used. So basically, people like you and I, we have not yet attended to the development of our upper anatomy, upper spiritual anatomy and physiology, or metaphysiology, the same way we have attended to the development of our personality. Our personality has been under development for a long, long time, and that's it. We're facing a new frontier, and there are obstacles when we deal with that frontier, and we try to overcome those things so the kind of development that is promised to the human being can truly take place. Now, you know, I do believe that, or I have the indication that Venus and Earth were to have evolved in a parallel manner. But somewhere, Earth, the logos of Earth, fell in one of his subsidiary expressions, fell victim to a tendency towards cosmic glamour. And somewhere, DK is telling us, look, there's a problem here with Earth. Earth has a personality problem. It has not mastered its personality. It's really, you know, in terms of the planets, it's a planetary initiate of the first degree only, cosmically considered. Whereas Venus, just like Sirius in a way, is minimally a planetary initiate of the third degree and maybe more. So they have their method of evolving as well. And we have struggles here because we've allowed certain forces from the previous solar system and from the moon chain, I guess, to affect the clarity of our developmental process. So we are, just the way our planetary logos is subject to some kind of cosmic glamour, so we inherit all that as well, and we have to learn to deal with it. And I had this flash, you know, the other day, and glamour, you know, is it's not really an imaginary thing at all. It really is substantial. You would say it's almost material. It's like a wall. Unless you can get through it, and of course, people eventually are taught to walk through walls. It's one of the psychic abilities. Unless you can get through those barriers, you're not going to see reality as it is. Now, BL, just let me know if I saw some question marks and all that, but I assume that if you and Michael and Joe can take care of them, you will.
Yes,
And if it's something I have,
right. There were a couple of issues with sound, but I think we've got them worked out.
terrific. Thank you so much. Okay, friends. Well, look, I'm a week behind here at least, but I've today is the 21st, and tomorrow, you know, if you happen to be in our esoteric United Nations, or you know, maybe have a very strong desire to join in our subjective work for evoking the soul of nations, we have a meeting. And let's see, I think our meeting is at 6 o'clock p.m. GMT. And it will be a meeting that will end around 7:30 p.m. GMT. And we will continue, and Tuya will continue to offer the vision there of what we hope to do during the next number of years. A lot of it, not only evocatory work, but protective work, if I can put it like that. You can understand why, with personalities going a little crazy in our world, and you know, I'll tell you what, DK warned about that. I think it was in Esoteric Psychology, Volume 1. He said, the day is coming when there will be many more personalities per se. They will be integrated personalities and not necessarily spiritual at all. And this will present a point of danger to humanity. Well, we have it. You know, we have these half-baked leaders who are fascinated with themselves, and they don't see a wider world. And it's happening all over the world, and it's a stage through which personalities do pass. But by the time they get to the middle of the fifth pedal in their development, the tower begins to fall. And that tower comes crashing down, and you have the image of the blasted tower from the tarot, and they're falling off out of the tower, and their egoism is destroyed. And with the destruction of egoism comes the beginning of the possibility of being on the first stages of aspiration, real aspiration, and the path towards becoming the aspirant, the probationer, the disciple. So it's a dangerous period. He didn't say when it would happen, but it's all part of this big glamour of personality that we've been working on. You know, sometimes I say, well, you know, there's a million glamours according to the particular individual. There's all kinds of distinctive methods by which a barrier might be set up between them and greater truth. But in the last analysis, the only thing that really is that's inhibiting is the illusion of mistaken identity and personality centrism, which is why decentralization is so very, very important. And then the full flood of emotional desire behind that craving to be at the center of the world, namely the limitations of personalism. So, and out of all that, as far as I can see, comes the many, many other glamours. So if you have the main thing, man doesn't know who he is. He thinks he is something that he is not. He thinks that part of himself is all of himself. And as a result, he makes terrible mistakes and perpetuates those mistakes as if they were just, well, the natural course of things. So we have to break that major illusion and all the desire that goes into reinforcing that illusion. Just ponder on that just for a moment, you know. You know, the Hindus and that whole Vedanta tradition, they really have it right, you know. They know the nature of illusion. And when the soul ray of India under Aries really begins to emerge, and the spiritual center that we call Darjeeling awakens, and it's the most occult center, and it's not by any means awakened yet, then we're going to see a whole new attitude toward what the human being really is, a growth of group consciousness and a real movement towards the consciousness of oneness. Okay, why don't we get into our readings here a little bit, and then into our meditation. Let's see if I have anything here that reminds me. Yeah, there's going to be more than, yeah, that's it. Well, there's the word, isn't it, friends? Misidentification. You know, until you can, any of us, stand back and say, I have, but I am not that which I have, the distinction between Aries and Taurus will not be understood. And the mistake being made is that the human being mistakes the having for the being, mistakes possession for its identity. The having must not be mistaken for the being. Okay, let's see. Now, a few things. So we'll start where we were, more or less, and we're on page 140, roughly, making our way through this book written in the 1930s, largely to a small group of interested disciples who were standing on the periphery, had been gathered to the periphery of Master DK's ashram. And of course, we know the story. They weren't able yet to do what he had in mind for them, but the C Group project lasts until the year, and who knows how they may adapt that, but it lasts until the year 2200, which is still 175 years roughly away from now. So maybe all of this can be brought to a wonderful fruition, and real teams can be out there representing each of the C groups, including this observers of reality C group number 2, which deals with the dissipation of glamour. All right, so let's do a little thinking together, and then we'll have our meditation. Okay. Now he's excuse me. He's offering us some basic premises, and he's talking about light being thrown into the astral plane and revealing what otherwise remains present, disruptive, separative, but undetected. That's the problem. Undetected and answered by the sad statement, but that's just the way I am. Well, we have to, I'll never forget, my colleague Marianne Castellino, we were in the United Nations back when, and Krishnamurti was giving a talk, so obviously it had to be before 1985 because he passed on then. And everyone was a bit sycophantish, if I can put it that way, a little bit obsequious, a little bit, like I'm the student, you're the teacher, like that. And by an important dignitary, the question was being asked, so what should we do to be better, more spiritual people? Well, Krishnamurti was not a big man, but he had a tremendous authority, and he could use his voice in various ways that commanded that authority. And he just said, change. It resounded through the meeting where the General Assembly, I think, was meeting. It was one of those very big rooms. And I don't know, somehow we were, I don't know what room it was. I think it was that room, but it was a huge room. And his voice just resounded through that space. Change, he said. And that's all he said. Okay. And he, if you've read some of his material, you discover how difficult the demand really is. We think, well, it's the easiest thing in the world to change. Well, why do we still have glamours? Life after life after life, okay? It's not so easy. But he was very willful man, very second rate, but first rate. And he just made demands, you know, maybe the way an arhat would, an arhat of the 4th degree. Okay. Some effort must be made to dissipate the fog and the mists, which are concentrated on the astral plane. Certain basic premises are therefore in order, and these might be stated as follows. Number 1. So let's pay close attention and reflect a little. The quality and the major characteristic of the soul is light. Just look at that. Just think about that for a minute. Yes, we have love. Yes, we have the will as it comes in sacrificially, but the quality is light. And what does light do? And do you actually, in what way do you see light, or do you see that which light reveals? That's the question. What do you see? You see beams of light, of course, but it's pretty much like illuminating the atmosphere and what's in it. Do you actually ever see light per se, or the essence of it? Let me put it that way. Therefore, if that light is to be used, and the quality expressed by the disciple and the worker, and be used and expressed, he must first of all achieve a recognized contact with the soul through meditation. Well, some of us have been in this incarnation, this field, a long time, and we've been trying to learn how to meditate. If you have had the good fortune of reading and rereading the book From Intellect to Intuition, you understand that there's lots of ways to avoid learning how to meditate. You can get overly absorbed in study. It's, you know, it's good as long as it's not excessive. You can do a lot of running around on the outer plane and being helpful. You can call it service, even though the real service is the spontaneous soul radiation, and then avoid ever learning to meditate, says Alice Bailey. So it's a wonderful book, this Intellect to Intuition. And I've never read anything so good on contemplation as what she has. She quotes a lot from the mystic Evelyn Underhill, and maybe that's a more somehow detailed book and not necessarily in the language of the ageless wisdom, but Alice Bailey includes all that in her chapter on contemplation. And if you really want to distinguish what contemplation, matter of fact, we should do that sometime. We should really read her descriptions of the phases of meditation, which would namely be concentration, meditation, contemplation, illumination, inspiration, initiation. Sometime, maybe we do that, huh? Okay. Anyway, the quality and the major characteristic of the soul is light. So naturally, when this light, all matter is light or condensed light, but it has a revealing quality. When it shines upon what we have considered customary, we see it, the object, the apparent object, in a completely new context and with completely new understanding. I remember, it's I used to chase after bookmobiles because I lived out in the country in old days, and I picked up some of these old mystical books. It was a very familiar world to me. Medieval mysticism, really familiar. And to give you an idea of the kind of thing you would read something like this. A flea, let's talk about a little animal there. A flea in God is worth far more than a castle outside of God. That's not a direct quote, but you get the idea that the humblest thing, as we usually perceive things, if in God, that is, if perceived in soul light, is worth far more than the most glorious fabrication outside of the range of soul light. So think about that for a minute, because it shows you, we live in a divine world. Some people say what a beautiful world it is. Isn't everything glorious? Isn't everything beautiful? Master Moria tells us, with beauty thou hast the light. Okay, these people are perceiving in the light of the soul. And then there are others who can see the most glorious things. It moves them not, and they're outside the range of soul perception. So better to perceive within the light of the soul. Therefore, if that light is to be used and that quality expressed by the disciple and the worker, is there one without the other? He must first of all achieve, how long have we been attempting? A recognized contact with the soul through meditation. Now note that in our usual meditation, which emphasizes light in this dissipation of glamour work, we do preliminarily come in touch with the light of the soul. We're supposed to. Do we recognize it? Do we recognize it when the light of the soul really begins to be activated? And sometimes the light in the head and those kind of phenomena visually occur, and then there's this more tactile sense of things you begin to feel within your body or within your etheric nature, currents of energy that you didn't feel before. See, these are all signs that you're contacting a higher level of vibration. And we want to persistently do that until we are Chohan's centered within the monad. And then, of course, beyond that too. Okay. The quality of the astral plane, its major characteristic, not a very happy thought here, is glamour. Now, we may have thought, well, it's attractive, it's the next step, it's all that. Well, Master Moria says, don't be like Moses. Thank you. Just check out the chat box, and you'll see that these lists of meditation phases are in that book at those places. But anyway, Moses, it's an outer symbol of an inner event, is wandering in the wilderness for 40 years with the people of Israel. Now, how much of that really took place, how much of that is allegorical, the parting of the Red Sea and all that. Let's just say the astral plane is the wilderness, wandering in the wilderness. And Master Moria advises, he says, look, go straight through. Do not stop, do not become attracted. Do not get off the path. Go straight through the wilderness, fleetly, swiftly, and do not be attracted to the sideshow. That was one of the things I really remember, the teacher that I am so indebted to. I said, well, what about this discipline and that discipline? And I mentioned astrology and many other occult things. He says, okay, all of that is fine and that's good, but don't be attracted by the sideshow and miss the main event. And what? So, okay. And the main event was this ability to see the one and to be the one and to identify as the one. That was the main event. So I spent many years of my life, sometimes in the sideshow, but never forgetting, that lesson about the main event and how if we get anchored in the main event, well, it's like this biblical phrase, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven and all things will be added unto you. And seek ye first the main event and you'll have the sideshow too. The major quality, however, he says, is glamour. It is the field whereon the great battle of the pairs of opposites must be fought, as they are the expression of ancient desire. In one case, glamorous, deceptive, false, and in the other, high spiritual longing for that which is real and true. Well, you know, the Battle of Kurukshetra and the somehow the Bhagavad Gita illustrating that tremendous battle. And Philip Lindsay knows a lot about this. There's this, is it a 9-hour, 8-hour, 9-hour movie about the great battle between the two sides of the family. One of the name Pandavas, something like that. I don't know the details, but the Bhagavad Gita apparently was a real battle in the middle of the Atlantean period, south of the city that is now known as Delhi or New Delhi. Delhi. And it was the real thing. And it was, in a way, decisive for humanity. It compelled various changes of approach, but it also was a kind of victory, at least that humanity would not totally succumb to the left-hand path. So, and you know, and it was said to have been fought with stupendous weapons about which we know nothing. One of them, these weapons, was called the Eye of Kapila. Now, somewhere, and I think Tuya has it somewhere, the names of the exoteric and esoteric Kumaras are given. Whatever Kumara occupies an exoteric position is a Buddha of activity. They keep on rotating, apparently, changing positions. And there is among the esoteric Kumaras of the day only one whose name begins with a different letter, and that is Kapila. Kapila. And so this, you know, talk about laser weapons and things of tremendous destructive potential. Apparently, in this great Atlantean battle, those kinds of things were utilized. And someone told me that there's some kind of structure of glass or a melting of stone or an appearance of a certain type of glass that shows that weapons of tremendous heat generation were used in those days. Anyway, I don't know if you can stand to see a movie for 8 or 9 hours. Is it Richard Brooks, the director? I'm not sure. Brooks seems to come to my mind, but I may be incorrect. It might be really worth seeing because it was a turning point for humanity. Yes, the spiritual hierarchy had to go indoors, so to speak, and the mysteries were established on the higher planes, or at least re-emphasized. And they could not come out among humanity directly anymore because a lot of responsibility was being put on humanity from that time on. It says, look, we've helped you, we've helped you, we've helped you. What has it gained? Something. But now you have to help yourself. And that's the way it's been up to this time. when again the masters will come forward and walk among us in recognizable form. Anyway, every one of us microcosmically has this battle between the pairs of opposites within us. None of us escapes being the dweller and being the angel. Now, if the dweller is always winning, and if we're oriented in our desire nature towards the dweller, then indeed we are subject to glamour. In a way, glamour is nothing but personality living without knowing that a higher one of the pairs of opposites exists. So if I'm in this egoic lotus and I'm having a grand old time developing the first, second, and third petals, I may be a very intelligent person by the time I'm over here in the later development of petal 3. However, I'm still in the hall of ignorance. 1, 2, 3, hall of ignorance. 4, 5, 6, hall of learning. And 7, 8, 9, hall of wisdom. Sacrifice and wisdom. So we have to somehow learn that even though we have knowledge, we may still be in ignorance. That's why the very first tier of petals, when you're learning all about the world and really can develop some pretty acute intellect in that third petal, it's still the hall of ignorance because we are unaware of the higher of the pairs of opposites. It should be here remembered that astral desire, just, observe yourself, wrong and selfish emotion, and astral reactions to the facts of daily life are not natural to the soul and constitute eventually a condition which serves to veil successfully the true nature of the spiritual man. Well, we know the story. It happened largely in Atlantean days, and came the time when the Black Lodge said, okay, let's make it even more difficult now for humanity to move into reality, and they aided and abetted all of these selfish emotions. There's a whole, if we really stretch out how long we've lived on this particular planet, what we've done, it's an amazing saga, and one that the average individual cares nothing about and really knows nothing about. But we've been here a long time. However you slice it, if you're interested in theosophy and in master decay, you've been here a long time. It may have been only since the days in Lemuria, in Middle Lemuria, but the odds are that it's been billions of years longer, and that you are moon chain humanity, and even beyond in the previous solar system. So when the Tibetan says that human progress has been painfully slow, you've got to look at glamour as one of the great reasons, self-generated, natural in the personality world. Part of the problem of our planetary logos, which we have absorbed in our planetary logos, now in a masculine incarnation, very much delayed compared to where he would be. And we all suffer the consequences as well, because in a way we are that logos. Okay, going on a little bit anyway. The sound of the lecturer drinking tea. Okay. Number 3, a relation then must be established between the soul and the astral plane via the astral body of the disciple. It's a very clear principle. Now, if we get too much soul energy that we don't know how to handle into the situation, we can make the glamour worse. But this has to be done. And as you see, the meditation that we have been doing, well, okay, we've been trying to do that. This astral body must be regarded by him as his response apparatus to the world of sensation, and as the only instrument whereby his soul can contact that level of expression, temporary and non-lasting though it may be. So this is it. The key is the word response apparatus. Keep it in good shape. Know that it allows us to enter the world of sentiency, and hopefully not the world of illusion. The disciple must, therefore, establish contact with the soul and do this consciously and with the needed emphasis, and so carry soul light to his own astral body. Learn to focus it there in the solar plexus center. And from that point of achievement, proceed to work upon the astral plane at the arduous task of dispelling glamour. The occasional chihuahua may be heard in the background. soul light into the astral body, we will know what we're desiring, what we're aspiring towards. We will know why we are desiring what we desire, why we are building those desire forms, and what is the motive behind our aspiration. We're told that the hierarchy judges us by our motives so often, and not necessarily by our immediate successes and failures. So, an illumined astral body. And at first, I suppose, it's a pretty horrible sight. Not at all the way we glamorize it. The glamour of the beauty of the astral plane, I think, is probably one of the main glamours. We're attracted to that level of life. You know how often a DK seems to indicate the triplicity soul, mind, brain, and he leaves the astral body out of it. The astral body really has to be converted before it can be part of that very important alignment. Okay. I realize, friends, that I'm not covering a lot of ground fast, but well, you know, in a way, I'm on my way back, and in another way, I will just say that we need to give very close attention to these fundamental ideas about how we live the spiritual life. When the line of contact, this line of contact has been made, and the soul, the astral body, and the astral plane have been, note, intimately related. He didn't have to put that word in there, intimately, but it is important. The disciple must carry the focused light from the solar plexus, where it has been temporarily localized, to the heart center. Now, right there, you have the second initiation beginning. The transference from the solar plexus to the heart, that whole process is really undertaken in relation to the second degree, and there's a lot more intelligence, throat center activity coming in a higher way. So you have spiritual intelligence, mental illumination, and a loving heart all at once. Well, our teaching is taking care of a lot of that. Master DK is giving us easily the method of spiritual intelligence and mental illumination. But of course, the more tender, inclusive, loving heart pervades all of his work. And we should be absorbing those potentials. So now here we are. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the screen here a little bit from a distance. So into the heart center. and especially the influx between the shoulder blades, about 3 inches in back of the spine, in the heart center. There he must steadily hold it and work consistently and perseveringly from that higher center. So DK has just invited us out of work within the solar plexus into work within the heart center. I might here paraphrase, changing positions, an ancient instruction for disciples, which can be found in an ancient instruction for disciples, which can be found in the archives of the hierarchy, and which refers to this particular process. I'm giving you a brief and somewhat inadequate paraphrase of this ancient symbolic wording. And this is going to be it for us for tonight. The disciple stands. Even that is something, because there's a possibility that the disciple swims or tries to tread water. The disciple stands, and with his back to the glamorous fog, his back looks towards the east, from whence the light must stream. In any Masonic lodge or any lodge of spirituality, you will know the importance of the East and its solar significance. Within his heart, he gathers all the light available, and from that point of power between the shoulder blades, the light streams forth. Very clear, isn't it, for us? How many of us are living, and I ask myself, I ask you, how many of us are living the life of the radiant heart, energy gathered up from the solar plexus, from the soul to the solar plexus and back to the heart? I think there are some, I think we have a sixfold progression that we've sometimes discussed. Do we live our life from that point? Or are we always busy reacting, you know what I mean? Thoughtlessly, suddenly, on the basis of old habits, not thinking about what's happening and not being able to think within the heart. The disciple stands, and with his back to the glamorous fog, because he's done some work, okay, looks to the east, from whence the light must stream. The sun, all good things from that rising sun. Within his heart, he gathers all the light available. That's the whole process of gathering up from the solar plexus at the second degree. Gathers all the light available, and from that point of power, between the shoulder blades, the light streams forth. Okay, all right. I know that I have spoken slowly, it's maybe, what I can do right now. And we've been pondering, and we'll continue with this. A little more to do next time. So this is webinar 143, I guess, and reading 83, and the page is 142. We're just there, and we're going to begin webinar with a very significant number. The number of the saved, 144. And somewhere in white magic, you begin to understand the language of occultism when Master DK shows you how the number of the saved was derived. And basically, it's all about counting the petals of the chakras. Okay, so, and that should be 20. And we start at 142, and it will be a, gosh, we have our evening sessions now, so this will be a morning session. Tuya and I may have now and then to disappear for a little while, conference time and all that, but we will persist. We will do our very best to persist. And there's more of this coming up, more foundational material. So friends, put your questions forward, your thoughts forward. You can write them, you can speak them, whatever you like. And let's see if we can get to the bottom of a few other things, if you wish to do so. So maybe, Michael, you can help me with, orient me towards who wants to speak or who has written. This is your turn.
While others are preparing their comments or questions, it occurred to me that glamour could be looked upon like an entity with its own life, quality, and appearance, which is something that we talk about in this meditation.
Indeed, and of course, there are many thought forms that are entified, and they are obstructive. There are many aggregations of lesser lives which have been combined in such a way that they obscure. It's a force that works against the being who is seeking true illumination. And it basically comes from not having a wide enough, a deep enough, a clear enough point of view. When you're overwhelmed by desire, you don't question the desire, where it's going, you don't examine it, and then it makes you prey to other forces which will hold you within your present ring pass knowledge. So whatever works for you or for others in your detection of and battle with glamour, so be it. If it works, it works.
It's almost as if we welcome this possessing presence that takes over our lives, that our soul in creating this body of manifestation, of experience, we welcome that possession of that form by this glamorous entity.
Well, you know, Thomas Rajas Sattva, at the root of movement is tamas, and it is a kind of inertia and a kind of unwillingness to measure up vibrationally to the requirements. And so, you know, like, what a relief. Oh, I don't have to do that. I mean, we've all experienced that. You know, I was just thinking, I'm up in the north or whatever. I've lived in the north a long time. And I'm about to go out and shovel the sidewalk because it's got a lot of snow. And suddenly one of my kids runs up to me and says, "Hey, Dad, you know, we're going to shovel the sidewalk. We really want to do that right now. You just go inside and relax and we'll take care of it." You know, the relief of that, you know, built into matter. So there's something that in us that does not vibrationally raise us ever higher in a consistent manner. It's a bit up and it's a bit down. So we have to deal first with Thomas. Then we get into this hyperactive stage. Many of us maybe have been through it. I know I have. And we look forward to the day when the right kind of rhythm, cyclically attuned to the divine plan, takes over, and we have achieved something of a higher nature than either Thomas or Rajas. Okay, do we have anybody that would like to ask a question or has said something? Or
Leslie wrote, "Don't be distracted by the sideshow and miss the main event. Great advice for third-ray types."
Oh my, yes, I was so you know, I love astrology. It's so interesting. There's no question this man was an initiate. Okay, so I wasn't a master, no, but an initiate, yes. And I was a third-rate type in many respects. And then I happened to be in the right place at the right time to walk up to him for the first time, a future devotee who became a very famous astrologer, well known with some of the first real excellent astrological software. And I got to immediately lock on to the first kind of encounter between this younger man and the older man. And everything in the young man fought against what the teacher was telling him. He was a strongly third-ray astrological type and ray type astrological type. And yet he became one of the most invariant devotees or adherent, or you know, the teacher became for him so important. And I just noticed, you know, the more they struggle, the harder they fall. And it was a revelation. It took place about 50 years ago, maybe a little bit more than 50 years ago, maybe 55 years ago. And I've been in touch with the with the man, and he's been made great contributions to astrology and all of that. And I didn't have a picture of the teacher, and I wanted one, of course, having a lot of sixth ray in me, and I had only to ask him, and he had everything that I needed, you know. So it's funny how things happen and how old relationships get replayed, and how all the time you get pointed more and more to the essence of things rather than the sideshow.
Okay, Kim asks, can you speak about the light shining forth from between the shoulder blades?
Well, I think sometimes you see an illustration of a spiritual type. It's like there's a blazing sun behind them. It's actually a visible thing, and every chakra has its radiation. And when things are really cleaned up and the Kundalini has done its work, then just, kind of go into cosmic fire around page 169. And I wonder if I can find it there. It's either 166 or 169, but you just read in that area about what man begins to look like when a lot of work has been done. Oh, no, that was wrong. That was wrong. Okay, hold on. Get out of that one and get back to Alice Bailey. I'll just see if I can find it, because it's on, it's called The Body Incorruptible, Kim. And it's a light body, and it ends up being the monad's representation on the lower planes. So if I put this on to zoom and go around 150 roughly, and then put this into hidden and go here too. I'm not sure I can find it right now, Kim, but it's right in here. Wait, maybe I'll do it in a slightly different way. Okay, so here it is. Oh, it's a beautiful thing. Or incorruptible, I guess is the word. 166 and 167. Okay, right here. The centers are formed entirely of streams of force pouring down from the ego. He transmits it from the monad. Now think about that for a minute, because it means that all of our chakras are really monadic in their origin. In this we have the secret of the gradual vibratory quickening of the centers as the ego, capital E, first comes into control or activity, and later, after initiation, the monad, thus bringing about changes and increased vitality within these spheres of fire and of pure life force. Now the next, it gets a little bit more descriptive here. The centers, therefore, when functioning properly, that's later, for the initiate, form the body of fire, which eventually is all that is left, first to the man in the three worlds, and later to the monad. This body of fire is the body incorruptible. or indestructible. That's in the Bible here. Focused or spoken of by St. Paul, and is the product of evolution and of the perfect blending of the three fires which ultimately destroy the form. When the form is destroyed, because that's important. We often ask, hey, the personality is destroyed, the causal body is destroyed, then what? What? Okay. And yet we have these great spiritual types operating right down here with us. What's going on? When the form is destroyed, there is left this intangible spiritual body of fire, one pure flame, distinguished by 7 brilliant centers of intenser burning. One pure flame, that's what you look like after all that destruction. One pure flame, distinguished by 7 brilliant centers of intenser burning. The electric fire is the result of the bringing together of the 2 poles and demonstrates at the moment of complete at-one-ment the occult truth of the words, our God is a consuming fire. And that's probably biblical from Deuteronomy 4:24, Hebrews 12 and 29. Anyway, you can, if you wish to look it up. So that's some of the occultism in the Bible. And when we talk about reaching the stage where that heart can really begin to radiate, and the wings of the individual that Master Moria always points out. I suppose, well, look, we have shoulder blades, right? But really occultly, they spread out as wings. Then we start to merge with our angel self and become eventually, and not too long from that time, both the man and the angel. So it's an activation from the monad through the ego, creating the chakras, and eventually the irradiation and full expression of these chakras, in this case of love, wisdom, and inclusiveness, and Jupiterian qualities from the heart center. Hope that is useful to you. Okay. What else, Michael? I hope you can, yeah?
I see no other hands raised or questions. Oh, okay. Olivia has her hand raised, excuse me.
Okay. Okay, we'll get there to you, Olivia. Right. Okay, go ahead, you're on.
Hi, Michael and everyone. I am sorry. I am late to this webinar. I didn't get the word about it. But all of a sudden I got this message inwardly, and lo and behold, so I've missed the
it happens spontaneously. I didn't really plan to give it, but since Tuya announced it last night at the broadcast, I said, well, okay, I'm trapped. So here we go.
Oh, well, great. Well, it's great. It's great. We're doing this. It's great to see you, and I hope you're feeling better. I'm back from the Holy Land Living Waters trip, and it was magnificent, and I'll put in a plug for the conference, which you might like, that I'll be talking more about that trip, which brought so many people together. You know, we had 90 delegates from all over the world. we didn't know most of each other. We were so diverse when we first came together. And after journeying through the Holy Land and focusing such good energies of love and light and blessing, and most importantly, unity, we actually left as a loving family. So that is my big takeaway from one of the most significant spiritual journeys of the different ones I've taken in my life. And I'm just looking forward to sharing so much with people at the conference. So sign up, please, if you haven't. I'll have glorious pictures and music and stories, and it will be wonderful to be with everyone again, where we also bring in that loving, unifying energy.
Yeah, that's excellent, Olivia. There's so much that's gone on in the Holy Land, which is not holy, that it needs to be reconfirmed by the group process so that it can pick up its destiny. Let's just say that. And thanks for putting in the plug. I plug in the beginning, you're plugging in the end. Look, everybody here, look, let people know about the conference and showing up in person, if I can say that. Now, look, when you just can't, you can't. And we do our best to broadcast to you and to reach you somehow with the various events. But when you can actually come yourself, there's an added factor. It's quite significant. And as we know, hierarchy works through events. We try to provide such an event that they can work through. I remember, when you read Agni Yoga, you read some shocking things. And it's a first-rate presentation. So anyway, he says, well, look, when there's a battle and you're full flush with your aura in terms of readiness and radiation, the masters tear off parts of your aura and throw them like missiles at the enemy. And I thought, whoa, what's going on in there, But it is a battle, and we face that now. The greater the light, the greater the dark. We face that now. We face all kinds of loss of morality and of the good law. But remember, the quote, given in different ways, that wherever there is a withering of the law and an uprising of lawlessness on all sides, then I manifest myself from age to age for the destruction of those who do evil and the promotion, whatever word is used, blessing of those who do good. And this is the Krishna talking. It's not just the Christ, it's the whole line of Krishnas and our reappearance of the Christ coming out now. This is the same thing. And is there a withering of the law? Oh my goodness. Does the law even exist? Who's above the law? The lower stupid ego or what? So let's just say we're there now. We're there. Well,
Wonderful. Thank you, Michael, for those words, really, because this is such a challenging, dangerous time, and yet a time of opportunity. So if we can come together in person, something magic happens, and we all benefit, and the work benefits in a great way. So please come if you can, and if not, tune into the live streaming. But if you can be there physically present, that would be glorious. So.
Well, the fourth ray, it's a fourth ray conference, and that's humanity's kingdom. It's humanity's hierarchy. It's the earth with its cross It's the United Nations ruled by the Fourth Reich. It's Scorpio, it's Buddhi, it's the hierarchy of human initiates. It's worth getting into those subjects.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Libby. Okay, anything else there, Michael? Do you see anybody that wants to speak? Or let's see, I often ask, let's see, Tuya's over there. I wonder, are you, dear, needing to say anything? We have the EUN tomorrow. I just would say that. Oh, no. Tuya's otherwise involved listening on an apparatus that's not conducive to speech. So EUN tomorrow. Remember, Esoteric United Nations, and you want to join us, you want to take your pledge, you want to stick with it and support the Soul of Nations, then please join us. And Michael, BL, Joe, can you provide us with a link in the chat box while we're getting on with other things for tomorrow's EUN? Is that
I am
possible?
working on it.
Thank you very much. Okay. Okay, let's see. I think we've covered most everything. And if I seem to be going a little slower tonight, I think I am. So just forgive me for that. Well, a couple of things have come out. Don't miss the main event and get stuck in the sideshow, and let your light shine. And you know, once I was in Aspen, Colorado, beautiful place, you know, and my family was young, and it was just a little time off and all that. And I was reading Ramana Maharshi. And you know, Carl Jung called him the whitest spot on a white space, meaning he was so pure in his approach to spirituality. And he had a method called the Vicharya method. And this method was basically constant, relentless repetition of the question, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? Who am I? So in the place where we had settled in a little, or we're going there, you know, you go up to kind of prepay and all that, and there's this sign on the wall, just a little sign, and it says, Hab Sonne im Herzen, Hab Sonne im Herzen, which is German for have the sun in your heart. It really struck me. And it was 40 years ago now, I'm remembering back, or more. And I thought to myself, wow, this is a good omen. And it was a good omen. If you have not read some of Ramana Maharshi, simple work, but relentless search for the truth. Hab Sonne im Herzen. Have the sun in your heart. That's the radiation of the heart center, as we discussed, I think, in response to, was it Kim's, Kim's question or thought. Okay, now friends, before the whole evening disappears here, I'm going to stay with this word, misidentification. in case anybody of us thinks it's easy to find what we are and identify as what we are. It's not easy. There's so many veils. That's why we have to be grateful to the great Lord who rent the veil of the temple from the top to the bottom. You know, go into your rays and initiations, read chapter 10 about the Deva kingdom and its relation to illumination. And there it says what Moses did, more connected in this case with they were all first ray, but Moses did the third ray part of it. St. Paul did the first ray part of it, opening up the factor of synthesis, and Christ did the second ray part of it, and the most comprehensive, therefore, and inclusive part of letting in the light. And right now, there's a bunch of people who think they're doing important things. And in a way, when you think about where our society is, those things are important. They don't have any kind of ultimate truth value. They're on the way, you know. They're not great expressions of the truth. Some of them more than others, let us say. But they're on the way to changing the structure of society so that the newer energies can actually enter. And we will not be conditioned and reconditioned by these thoughts about how important is our lower ego, at least before we become decentralized. You know, it's such a pitiful sight to see leaders of small vision rise to the heights of power where they can recondition for the worse so many thousands, so many millions. It's something that we have to fight. And we will continue that fight. So we're going to still keep our word misidentification, which is as much is as much dealing with illusion as with glamour. We take all of our mental misidentifications and we throw our whole emotional load at that and live in that body of emotion aiming at the wrong thing. Okay. So let's just be still for a while. So silence as we gather together as soul-infused personalities and even as souls upon the higher mental plane. Well, we assemble. We reassert our assembling as a group attempting to work with the hierarchy in relation to the divine plan and upon the astral plane, helping to get rid of the veils, the clouds, the fogs, the miasmas, all the things that prevent us from seeing, knowing, experiencing the real. And we use our protective formula. It's a long cross and involves the eyes, and if it wasn't necessary, DK wouldn't give it. So, as the soul, I work in light, and darkness cannot touch me. I take my stand within the light. I work, and from that point, I never move. Trace the light. And a larger cross appears before the group, which is the sum of the many crosses. So we stay in the light as we do this work with oftentimes some pretty ugly things. And protected in this way, we pull together the three lights we will use to make our beam of revelation and our beam of dissipation as they go forth into the astral plane to do the job. So we focus the light of matter, etheric physical, and of mind. Lower mental, we focus on the lower mental plane, we bring the two together. Vitality, matter, brought together with the light of the reasoning mind. An active, strong, vital light of logic, inquiry, analysis. The method of reaching truth vitalized by the energy of matter. And now we reach into the realm of higher mind. Soul contact. and recognition of soul light. Let's spend a few moments. The soul, always present, is more recognizable, more experienceable. The soul light, which is real, substantial, is imaginatively brought vibratorily down into contact and fusion with the other two types of light. You fuse the three together. And a triple light now exists as one, and we say the mantra, the light is one, and in that light shall we see light. This is the light that turns the darkness into day. Greater and greater lights will be revealed within the light gathered, until the light of day shines forth. And remember, that's the light of Scorpio ruling the human race, ruling the Buddhic plane, whereon the light of day is noted and one truly sees, and where the human monads express. And now we enter into the formula. And we think about ourselves as intermediaries between the higher and lower lights, between the higher triad and the lower triad. Radiance are we, and power. We stand forever with our hands stretched out, linking the heavens and the earth, the inner world of meaning and the subtle world of glamour. We reach into the light and bring it down to meet the need. We reach into the silent place and bring from thence the gift of understanding. Thus, with the light we work and turn the darkness into day. And our searchlight takes form. Triple light made as one, beaming forth into the astral plane, finding the glamours and used as a weapon to dissipate the glamours. And to help us do that, we want to strengthen our spiritual will. And so we call it forth from high places. It's amazing what we can do when we really are properly aligned. And we say, with power upon the beam, the light is focused on the goal. With power upon its beam, the light is focused on the goal. And the glamour we're going to be using as a direct attack is made on hierarchical organization within humanity. In other words, the good, the beautiful, and the true. As the time of direct attack is with us, we call in the spiritual will from the high places. It's this glamour of misidentification. What have we lost over the millennia? And even in the confines of our little incarnation here, what have we lost by misidentifying what we really are? Thinking we're one thing when we're really so much more. What have we lost? We ponder a little. And I suppose there's not one of us who couldn't have done more for the divine plan if we did not pass through periods of inappropriate lower self concern. What does he say? Forget the good self and the bad self, and let only Christ be seen and heard. Powerful, ancient mantra of the Christian era. So when we lose a true picture of what we really are and what we can really do, we have lost a lot. And we don't have to. So let us now look at the words of power, which we will meditate upon. The power of our united light prevents the appearance of the glamour of misidentification. We break up and dissipate those energy tendencies on the astral plane which make us seem like so much less than we really are. To be a real group is a powerful thing. The power of our united light negates the quality of this glamour of misidentification from affecting humanity. We kill out the thought form of the dominance of the lower ego. The power of our united light destroys the life behind this glamour of misidentification. And there's a rare beauty which begins to occur when your personal ring pass knot gives way and the merging really begins. So now, friends, take this for a few minutes, 5 minutes, into your meditation with intensity of purpose. See the work proceeding. See the dissipation going on. See this glamour giving way to something far more real until at last humanity is no longer the victim of this misidentification. So a few minutes of your focused silence. And I think this particular glamour which is creating all these artificial barriers, and which is the foundation of the great heresy of separateness, it can be overcome when we learn to be whatever we perceive. Be what you see, be what you perceive. We'll deal more with it in the upcoming identification as being webinar, which will be a Tuesday evening, here in Europe anyway. Tuesday night, actually. Don't let the ring pass not prove to be an immovable barrier between you and the other. Don't be stopped by that apparent demarcation of complete difference. There's a way through and a way in. And so, let's just imagine that a great solar wind blows away so many of these mists, veils, clouds, fogs. As we sound the Om 3 times, let's imagine that great solar wind at work clearing the astral plane and the lower mental plane, clearing them of this particular fundamental glamour. Oh. 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 And we see things not in fragmentation, but in union. And eventually in oneness. So, okay, we withdraw our beam to the lower mental plane. The lights return to their origin. And we know we can use our being individually and in group form. Of course, there is particular protection when you use the working group form. Well, we all want to thank you, Olivia, Tuya, and I, and all the team, broadcasting and webinaring, for showing up. let's continue. We'll do our little bit. We'll play our little part. Even if we clarified the glamour in just one little part of our life, we'd be doing something of value to the whole. Tomorrow is Saturday, and at 6 p.m. GMT, we will have the UN Esoteric United Nations meeting. We'll be stopping that around 7:30, and then BL and Eva will go on with their esoteric astrology seminar. I think it's mostly for Moria Federation people, but BL, do you take people to come in, or how does
Yes.
it go?
Yes, we're open to everyone.
Okay, great. So they are fine astrologers and rheologists, and you can gather something strengthening of your knowledge in that process. And then we continue on. So we won't have Soul of Nations tomorrow. Instead, the EUN will take its place. But on the other hand, if you do want to join, and you do want to take your pledge to stay with it for until the next festival week of the new group of world servers, then please do join us. And I think, Michael or someone, have you put the address in the chat box? Let's see here. Yeah, there it is. So just cut and paste that. And if you want to be joining us, okay. It's a lot of work. And, but you know the way they used to say in the arcane school, probably a tradition developed from the Alice Bailey days. We just have to keep on keeping on, which is true, and we will win the day. Blavatsky said, look, occultism must win the day by the end of the 21st century. Well, this is it. And that means that the right entry into the age of Aquarius depends upon a certain acceptance of the ageless wisdom thought form to orient people properly in their quest for the good, the beautiful, and the true. So we'll see you as we can, and we thank you for showing up, and pardon me the fact that I'm a little slower tonight, perhaps, than I otherwise might be, and things lasted a little longer. Tomorrow night, the EUN will be stopping around 7:30 GMT to make sure that the next webinar with BL and Eva can go forward with all things coherent and no rush. Okay. Good night, everybody. Lots of love, many blessings, and we'll see you soon.